It is time to check in with Dr. Joe Schwarcz, host of the Dr. Joe Show. It aired Sunday, by the way, here on CJAD at 3 o'clock. He's also director of the McGill Office for Science and Society, and we chat on Tuesday afternoon. So, Joe, interesting timing. We're going to talk about something that I think, and I will tell you just anecdotally, this has come up in conversation. This idea, if you will, of sunscreen, what's good, what's bad, should you use it, should you not use it, will it make you worse? I mean, I thought the whole idea behind sunscreen was we've established that, you know what, it's better to have sunscreen on and have protection than have none at all. But they seem to be turning the tables on this. So what's your take on this?
Well, for sure, there's no doubt that skin cancer is contracted when you expose yourself to ultraviolet light. So protection is absolutely necessary, and sunscreens should be used. But there are always, concerns whenever you're applying something to the body that, isn't a natural component of the body. There are a couple of questions. One is what happens if some of the sunscreen gets into the bloodstream, that is, if it goes through the skin. And the other is, can you go into the water and, does it get washed off? And what happens? Do you have to reapply it?
Okay.
Now, there's a very interesting development from a company in France, which seems to have gone a long way towards solving this problem. Because what they have managed to do is to take the active ingredient, and this is not hard to find. There are many compounds that will absorb ultraviolet light and prevent it from going through. But what they have managed to do is to chemically bind it to a substance that in turn binds to the skin. So essentially, it prevents the sunscreen from being washed off, even when you go into the water, because it is sort of, it adheres to the skin. Mm-hmm. And because it adheres to the skin, it also doesn't get into the bloodstream. So you have protection because you can cover yourself with the sunscreen, and it stays there. So you don't have to worry about getting into the body or being washed off. It's an interesting new idea. Of course, there has to be further testing to make sure that there's no kind of toxicity involved with it, but it looks like there isn't. So it's not that it's going to be on the market tomorrow, but it's just a very interesting way to perhaps solve an existing problem with sunscreens.
As I hear you, though, describe that, my first question would be, okay, so it'll stick so you don't have to reapply it. My question then is, how do you get it off when you're done being in the sun?
Right. It does wear off with time. Like, it's certainly not, it's not greasy at all, right? And it does wear off with time. From the preliminary studies that they show, within a couple of hours, enzymes in the skin will degrade it. But as I said, so far, I don't want to make more of it than what it is. It's a preliminary experiment.
Okay.
But it's sort of an aha moment, and science starts with an aha moment, and then you explore it and you see where it goes. Well, but there's something else I wanted to talk about, which is actually, I think, very interesting. It's a letter published in a medical journal, and it is entitled "The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Bathtub." Now, it's sort of a play on words of a classic phrase used in a Sherlock Holmes story, in the story of Silver Blaze, which is one of those short Sherlock Holmes stories about the fact that the dog did nothing in the nighttime, and the dog did nothing in the nighttime, didn't bark because the criminal was known to the dog. Anyway, that's the bottom line of that story. So this curious incident of the dog in the bathtub is all about a gentleman who goes to a doctor in Britain because he's complaining of a dry cough and breathlessness. And the doctor diagnoses him as being hypersensitive to something that has gotten into his lungs. But at first they can't figure out what it could be. But then when he starts asking him about his profession, it turns out that he plays in an orchestra, and he plays a trumpet in the orchestra. So the physician already had heard about the fact that when you play a trumpet, your saliva gets into the mechanism, and that is conducive to being a food for various kinds of microbes. So they look into this, and it turns out that when they examine the instrument, they find a fungus growing inside of it, and it was being nourished by saliva. But the interesting thing is that the fungus is one that is found only in soil. So they couldn't understand how this was getting into the trumpet. And this is where the dog comes into it, because it turns out that the family had a Sunday ritual. And after their morning walk, they would wash the family dog in the bathtub and then drain the tub, refill it, and wash the instrument in the soapy water. This is what he would do every Sunday. Well, it turned out that it was the dog who was tracking the fungus that it had picked up from walking outside into the bathtub, and they had not washed the bathtub completely enough, and some of this fungus got into the trumpet. So the solution was obviously to not do that. They still kept washing the dog the same way, but they didn't wash the trumpet in the tub after. And in fact, they couldn't even clean it properly, and he ended up having to spend 4,000 pounds on a new instrument. So it was just an interesting story, because who would ever think that you can get sort of infection in the lungs, pneumonitis as it is called, from playing a trumpet, and the fungus got in there because they had been washing the instrument in the same water as they had washed the dog.
The things you learn on this show, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, and that's the title of the curious incident of the dog in the bathtub.
Okay, Joe, just before we go, to come back to what we started with on this idea of sunburn, suntans, etc. The bottom line message is, if you're going to be out there in the sun, regardless of time of day, wear sunscreen. Don't wear. Where are we now?
Absolutely wear sunscreen.
Okay.
You don't have to go for the ultimate, of the 60 SPF. 30 is fine. That will block almost all of the ultraviolet light. And indeed, for the ones that are available now, you do have to put them on after you've gone into the water, right, because they do get washed off.
Okay.
And there's just absolutely no question that skin cancer is caused by exposure to ultraviolet light. So yes, you have to be careful.
Okay.
And now they sell all kinds of T-shirts also that will block ultraviolet light.
Well, next week when we come back, we can talk about a post that someone showed me, my wife, that says that the sunburn can be brought on by your diet. But we'll save that for next week, okay?
All right.
Okay. Thank you, Joe.
Okay, thanks. Bye.